Let's talk about Facebook. And we haven't seen much of it yet, at least not on your end, Justine. But in the coming hours, Facebook will start blocking Canadian news sites. All Canadian news links, CJD, CTV, the Gazette, everything blocked. Why? Because the C-18 Online News Act was passed in the Senate, and the government wants to essentially tax online news. I've heard it be compared, as I mentioned, to making people purchase a stamp to send an email. It's a silly, ridiculous thing, and the response from Google and Meta is obviously very aggressive. And if they have to shell out money to pay for every news link, they're deciding to not share that content on their platforms at all. Aaron Wudrick is the director of domestic policy for the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Aaron, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan.
Did I recap C-18 decently there? How else would you add the effects of this bill?
Yeah, look, it's a pretty dramatic move. I think for a lot of people, we all know that media is experiencing some tough times right now. I think a lot of people sympathize, and we all agree that having a strong, independent media is an important thing. And then you look at entities like Meta, like Facebook and Google. They've got lots of money, so you sort of tic-tac-toe. There's lots of money over here. These people need money. Let's just take it from the former and give it to the latter. But the problem, of course, is it's not that simple. And in a lot of cases, the platforms like Facebook, like Google, they're actually very helpful to media outlets. They drive a lot of traffic and a lot of eyeballs to them, so there's a lot of value there. And it's a little bit like, someone's doing you a favor for free, and then you say, well, I want you to keep doing the favor for free, but I also want you to pay me for the privilege of doing it. And so you can see why Google have got their backs up. The other thing, Dan, is that this isn't just about Canada. These are global companies. They know every other country. They know the Americans. They know the European Union are watching. And if they voluntarily sign up for, having to pay basically to bail out the entire media sector, they're going to see those other countries come calling for money pretty quickly soon, too.
Well, isn't that sort of the idea with this law? Aaron, Justine McIntyre here. Isn't this sort of the idea is that it's to provide fair compensation for media content, to give media a piece of the pie that they've been providing essentially for free? And I understand that the impact right now is obviously a backlash that is not favorable to media and is removing eyeballs instead of adding eyeballs. But isn't the idea that if Canada stands up, and Australia apparently has already gone forward with a similar law, and other countries start to follow suit, eventually at some point will Facebook, will Google and Meta be forced to start providing compensation?
Well, that'd certainly be true if they're actually making reams of money off of it, right? That's sort of the unproven assumption here is that Google and Facebook are making so much money off of sharing links to news sites that why don't they just share some? But I think we're about to find out with platforms like Meta saying they're going to stop whether or not they actually make that much money. I mean, It's entirely possible they don't make nearly as much money specifically from news sites. And if they're not bluffing, if that is the case, then the emperor has no clothes here. I think the problem is that there's a misunderstanding about that there's a pot of money specifically for news advertising. I mean, if we go back to the pre-internet era, the reason that newspapers, for example, got lots of ad revenue because there were very few places you could go that had a lot of eyeballs. And so advertisers went to newspapers. The problem with the internet is there are many, many things now that attract a lot of eyeballs, not just news. And so this idea that Google and Facebook are hogging the ads for news pot of money, there is no ads for news pot of money. It's just a pot of money for eyeballs. And what Facebook is saying by saying we're going to take news off is we don't actually get much money specifically for news. And as I said, it's a test case, so we're about to find out.
As I mentioned, in the coming hours, we're going to see Canadian news links blocked on Facebook, perhaps Google and other networks in the days to come. This is a democratic problem, a very serious one. And given that the people in power right now are certainly leaning on the populist side, it doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence. I saw Chris Biddle, who's the parliamentary secretary for Heritage Canada, so the deputy to Pablo Rodriguez, going back and forth with you on Twitter. And either you're with the government or you're against them, in Chris Biddle's view. He says to you, Aaron, thank you for taking the time of your day to defend big tech monopolies. And he characterizes your position as, quote, liberals are bad and so I support monopolies. I mean, you must, as a think tanker, Aaron, you're capable of holding a couple of different thoughts at once. It must be so frustrating to be able to deal with politicians who are so quick to smear and slander people and use this populist, bizarre language.
Yeah, look, to be fair to a guy like Biddle, he's a politician. He's the parliamentary secretary. He's in there, he's got his elbows up because he's in a partisan fight. I'm a think tanker. I have the luxury of being nuanced and taking sides on different things, on different issues, issue by issue. But what's fascinating here is I think the government essentially, they miscalculated. They thought this was going to be a simple matter of, we'll just, Google and Facebook have lots of money. We'll ask them to share a bit. They'll give it to us. It's a win-win. They didn't appreciate that the stakes were going to be so high. And now that they realize they've miscalculated, they're kind of doubling down. And they want to make some lemonade out of these lemons and say, well, you know what, if we're going to look stupid on this, we're going to make them the bad guys. And I just question whether or not that's going to work.
Could there be other unintended consequences to this law, in your opinion, Aaron? I mean, just in terms of the rise of fake news and other types of content or other ways of generating content?
Yeah, look, I think obviously concern about dwindling media is a real problem. I just think what they've proposed to do here is actually going to make it worse. It's not going to fix anything. I think another unintended consequence is we talk a lot about the big media players, the legacy outlets that are having trouble, but there are actually new outlets that are starting and growing. And they actually depend on platforms like Google and Facebook to get the eyeballs. They're happy to take the eyeballs for free. So if they stop sharing it, you're actually kind of squelching out these just very nascent media outlets. So I think you're not only not saving the old guys, you're actually harming the sort of newer innovative players at the same time.
Aaron Wudrick, Director of Domestic Policy at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Thanks very much, Aaron.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
The reality is, just despite all the nonsense, all the gibberish, the populist, just absolute nonsense you're going to hear from Pablo Rodriguez, the Prime Minister, and other liberals, this has to be one of the most illiberal laws I've seen in 20 years of paying attention here in Canada. And the direct result is that in the coming days, we will all be less informed. That is a fact. And that's scary. That's really quite scary.